You are looking at the most terrifying man in the world. He seems normal, maybe a little creepy with his big white teeth, but then you notice he has no eyes. And when you look deeper into this image, the scarier it becomes. His smile isn't right. There's something wrong with it. In 2008, paranormal investigators from the Atlantic Paranormal Society were trying to capture a ghost. Instead, they got what some people would call the Grinning Man. It is a scary story that takes place in a small town where there is a cemetery with graves dating back to 1697. This is where the ghost was said to live, restless because of the sin he committed when he was alive. While there, the investigators got more than they bargained for. They caught movement in their camera. At first it seemed like a dog running through the woods, but when they reviewed the footage later, they saw something incredible. It looked like a person wearing all black, a hooded sweatshirt and a mask that covered the entire front half of their face. What they found really strange was that the person didn't seem to be breathing. They also didn't cast a shadow. The figure appeared to have no eyes either, just two empty holes. This was terrifying, but they knew that the only way to get to the bottom of this was to return to the cemetery. The team returned with some new equipment, including a thermal camera and night vision goggles. The investigators soon spotted what appeared to be a human-like shape. It was tall and thin, and it seemed to be standing directly in front of the camera. They could see that whatever it was had no eyes. One investigator described it as an alien-looking man with a grotesque grin. Then it did something even more disturbing. It reached out its hand towards the investigators, beckoning them to come closer. This was too much for one of the team members, who started screaming and ran away. But before he left, he looked back at the Grinning Man and saw something unbelievable. The man was now kneeling on the ground. When they checked the tape, they realized that it had been standing upright only seconds before. Was this a demon, or something else entirely? The investigators called it the Grinning Man, because it seemed to be permanently stuck in a smile. Whatever it was clearly not of this world. But the weirdest part was yet to come. After they'd finished filming, one of the investigators felt compelled to walk up and touch the man, and then the strangest thing happened. As soon as he touched him, the man vanished. And it wasn't until the next morning, when they pored over the footage, that they noticed what had really happened. The man's smile hadn't been a smile at all, it had been a grimace. And if you look closely at his mouth, you can see that it was full of sharp teeth, not the kind of teeth a person should have. So who was the Grinning Man? Was it a monster, a demon, a ghost, a creature from another dimension, or something else entirely? Well, according to legend, there may be a simple explanation. Some say the Grinning Man is an alien known as an Indrid cold. If you've ever seen a humanoid alien, there's a good chance it was an Indrid cold. They're said to be highly intelligent beings who travel from planet to planet, taking the appearance of humans. Why do they do this? Well, according to some, they simply want to learn about humanity, but others believe they come here for far more sinister reasons. Some say the Indrid cold lure humans into secluded places so they can abduct them. Others say they kill people and wear their skins. No matter what they do, the end result is always the same. Anyone who comes across an Indrid cold will go insane. That's why when the investigators touched the Grinning Man, they immediately forgot about him. They couldn't remember anything about what had happened to them. They experienced amnesia, which allowed the alien to escape. There have been many sightings of the Indrid cold around the world, but perhaps the most famous occurred in England in 2001. A family of 5 had gone camping in Snowdonia National Park when they were suddenly approached by a very strange man. He was wearing a dark hooded jacket and his face was covered by a scarf. Even though it was obvious the man wanted to talk to them, he wouldn't remove his scarf. Eventually the family drove home, but they soon realized they weren't alone. The driver saw a strange man walking alongside the road, still wearing his scarf. When they stopped to ask if he needed a lift, he agreed. Soon, he was inside the car, and the family realized there was something very wrong with him. The man seemed almost robotic in his movements. He didn't speak, but instead stared straight ahead. The family was getting creeped out, but then the stranger did something that made them scream in horror. He slowly turned to look at them, and revealed his true form. It was like staring into the abyss of space itself. They saw rows upon rows of sharp teeth, but the worst part was his eyes. They glowed an unnatural red color, and seemed to pierce through their souls. The family managed to drive off, but they never saw the man again. To this day, people wonder if they had encountered an Indrid cold or something else entirely. What we do know is that the story of the Grinning Man phenomenon goes back hundreds of years. There are reports of similar creatures in folklore all over the world. One of the most famous stories comes from Germany. A young woman was walking home one night when she heard footsteps behind her. She picked up her pace, but the footsteps kept coming closer. Then she heard a voice. It spoke in a language she didn't understand, but somehow she knew what it was saying. The voice told her she would die within a year. Then the woman turned around to run, but that's when she saw something that made her freeze in her tracks. Standing before her was a tall, gaunt man with long, dirty hair and a wide grin. He wore a long coat that hid his body, but the woman could see that he was missing something. He only had one eye, but the strangest part was his smile. It was wide and filled with sharp teeth, like the grin of a hyena. The woman screamed and ran home, but the memory of the one-eyed man haunted her for the rest of her life. She died the following year, and some people say it was because she had seen the Grinning Man. But why does this story keep repeating itself? Is there really such a thing as the Grinning Man? Well, some believe the Grinning Man is a kind of spirit that haunts people before they die, but others think he's something much more sinister. They say he's an omen of death, a harbinger of doom, and if you see him, you should consider yourself lucky. If he appears in your dreams, you'll die within a week. But if he approaches you while you're awake, your time is up right now. So if you ever see the Grinning Man, stay calm. Don't panic. Just remember one thing. You can't escape a smile that never fades. We have already established that seeing the Grinning Man means you're likely to meet an untimely demise. But why do we fear this so much? Well, according to psychologist Scott M. Phillips, our fear of the Grinning Man is rooted in our fear of the unknown. It's this fear that drives us to seek out answers, to try to make sense of the world around us. But sometimes there are no answers, and that's what scares us the most. But there may be another reason why we fear the Grinning Man. According to some, the Grinning Man represents our own mortality. When we see him, we're reminded of our own fragility, of our own insignificance in the face of something greater than ourselves. This is known as the terror of death. It's the fear of our own death, of our own annihilation. It's this terror that drives us to seek out immortality, to try to find a way to live forever. But there may be no escape from the Grinning Man, no way to avoid our fate. He may be our destiny. So if you ever see the Grinning Man, what should you do? Well, according to some, you should embrace your fate. You should accept that your time is up, and that there is nothing you can do to change it. Others say you should fight back. You should try to escape, to outrun the Grinning Man, to hide from him, to do whatever it takes to survive. But what if there is no escape? What if the Grinning Man is our destiny? Well, then we must face our fears and accept our fate. We must learn to embrace the unknown, to find peace in uncertainty, to find comfort in the face of death. But what if we don't want to accept our fate? What if we want to keep living, to keep experiencing all that life has to offer? Well, then we must be careful. We must be aware of the Grinning Man and what he represents. We must learn to recognize the signs, to heed the warnings, to do whatever it takes to stay alive. For if we don't, we may just find ourselves trapped in a nightmare from which there is no escape.